Custodians of the Internet. Platforms, content moderation, and the hidden decisions that shape social media. Tarleton Gillespie, Yale University Press, 2018. Many useful tips to get insight on social media, perfect for those who use it habitually. Find out how moderation works and better understand the functioning mechanisms of the web. Understand the opportunities and pitfalls that accompany your online presence. The author. Tarleton Gillespie is a leading researcher at Microsoft Research New England, as well as an associate professor at Cornell University. Co-founder of the blog Culture Digitally, he is also the author of many popular articles and publications. He has completed many research projects related to controversial aspects linked to the use of digital media, including in the promotional and advertising sector. He currently works to understand the role of social platforms as new channels for the dissemination of political and cultural content, and studies the function of algorithms as a means of conditioning collective knowledge and social participation. Our perception of social networks. Many of us would like our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube accounts not to be subject to any harassment and not to be associated with compromising content. Likewise, we all wish to have full freedom of expression. Social media allows us to connect with many people. This has clear advantages, but also many risks, which are sometimes underestimated. For this reason, a filter is necessary. Unfortunately, however, although content moderation is custom for all social media, this practice is constantly hidden, and its implementation methods are kept secret. All platforms are subject to moderation. Platforms must, in one way or another, be moderated to protect each user from the network, to protect a group of users from their antagonists, but also to remove what is offensive, abject, or illegal. The challenge lies in determining exactly when, how, and why to intervene. Moderating content is difficult because the reports are numerous and continuous, because the rules to be applied are often not clear, and because a simple mistake can generate a public scandal that obscures the millions of behind-the-scenes successes. And mistakes can happen because there is always room for an exception to every rule. Everything that is not blatantly illegal can be defended and become acceptable. Who makes the rules? The rules are imposed by the company that owns the platform and shared with users. Many of these rules borrow American norms and customs, but they must be adapted to the countries and companies that can access the platform. Moderation can be used to adapt the nature of the platform to the external constraints imposed. No form of moderation can be said to be impartial because it is always the result of a choice dictated by non-negotiable rules. Our data, the price we pay to access social networks. The laws in force in the United States provide for specific penalties for those who circulate obscene or socially unacceptable material on the net. However, the same legislation does not provide for any liability attributable to the media used for the dissemination of these materials. Social media, in fact, works as a means of communication and regulates independently. They can claim the right to remove users or delete content without having to answer for any of the actions they perform. The birth of the web is linked to the dream of having a space in which freedom, neutrality, and meritocracy are the dominant qualities behind the building of a widespread and shared culture to create a democratic information society. Reality does not exactly match this dream. Access to the network is the result of choices, as is access to a platform. Users are given the opportunity to choose independently and free of charge. The price to access these networks is the sharing of your personal data, and by accepting to become the object of targeted and tailor-made promotional material. So the platform is not a neutral space, it's a hybrid entity. It is neither a channel nor a content. It is not just a network or just a medium. The guidelines for managing a virtual community. Almost everyone subscribes to a platform without reading its terms of use. The community guidelines represent its articles of association, or rather, the translation into simple words of the terms of service, the legal contract signed upon registering. The contract that a platform offers us highlights that we are joining an extended community while maintaining freedom of expression, yet remaining responsible for whatever is said, written, or looked at. However, the guidelines are nothing more than a list of rules to be respected to the T. prohibitions expressed as means to satisfy personal and collective interest. When we access the community, we are required to do so with the intention of giving our best and promoting the circulation of content that can positively contribute to improving that community. In truth, there are no definitive, clear, undisputable guidelines. They can be adapted to the realities of the socio-political context of the country in which the platform is active, or they can be modified by the company that owns the social network for its own needs. 3. Imperfect solutions to control an immeasurable amount of content. What characterizes current social media is the massive amount of subscribed users and content circulating on the platforms. Basically, it's an unstoppable flow. Managing such a flow of data is a complex undertaking. The ideal scenario would be to carry out a preventive check on the contents put on the market, but usually the post and then filter policy is adopted, resorting to different methods depending on the case. 1. Editorial review. The platform is only responsible for reviewing the contents. It is the perfect form of moderation, especially if you manage to implement it in advance, as Apple does. This is a careful and timely check carried out before publication. 2. Flagging. The platform requests the reporting of dubious content to the user community. This allows you to distribute the workload over many more people, to precisely clarify the rules of use of the platform and to empower users. It is a follow-up service for reports received. 3. Use of automated techniques. These are types of software that are not simple to use and have a limited efficacy because they do not allow messages to be contextualized before their interpretation and possible elimination. False positives and false negatives are not always verifiable. These are all imperfect methods that are widely tested and adopted only in ideal situations. They are an integral part of digital culture and shape the policies adopted by the platforms and, more generally, by the network. The moderators behind each platform. Behind each platform is the revision work carried out by numerous people. Because of the vast amount of data to be reviewed, platform owners are forced to outsource human resources. Most of the audit work is hidden. A part is carried out in the headquarters of the owner company, but the largest part is outsourced to service companies located in very distant countries, both in spatial and cultural terms. Since the activity is distributed among different workers, it is not easy to verify and is often associated with particularly stressful working conditions. It is very easy for mistakes, distortions and misunderstandings to take place. The subjects that can be involved in the moderation process are 1. Employees. They are at the peak of the review process. They are usually young professionals, highly experienced in the sector. 2. Crowd workers. A large mass of workers hired by a foreign company to operate on a platform. They are a real army of workers, often subjected to long working hours and often underpaid. Their work is psychologically tiring, as they filter out all the ugliness that circulates on the net. 3. Community managers. They are moderators who have the power to supervise the review activity carried out by subgroups of users and who can intervene in the resolution of technical problems or in resolving disputes between various subjects involved. 4. Flaggers. Simple users who are given the opportunity to report anomalies and abuses with regards to the content circulated on a certain platform. It is a voluntary and, in some ways, specialized contribution because the users in question know the cultural context. Their judgment, however, may not be impartial. 5. Experts. They can position themselves at different levels to help resolve any disputes. Managing such a diverse and large group of people involves some risks. 1. Subjective interpretation of the imposed rules. 2. Difficulties in coordinating and managing reports. Moderation, a space for political dispute. The extent of the visibility that a group with political or social interests can obtain online is a fundamental element for its success and its recognition. When moderation activity favors or penalizes a user or a group of users, it can give rise to appeals motivated by the desire to save one's position or not to tarnish one's image on the net. A platform's decision to delete or filter content. When content is inappropriate for a limited number of users, it can be deleted or hidden. As a rule, the tendency is to eliminate inappropriate content because it is considered a safer action to protect the whole public even if censorship is in contrast with the principle of freedom of expression that characterizes the network. Some platforms, however, prefer to limit the visibility space of the reported content, which means applying moderation by design, strategic moderation, using software that guarantees data filtering and distribution only to authorized users. This is an automatic process where the user could search for this content and not get any results displayed, search for this content and obtain a false result, which does not include what was meant to be hidden. The platform can declare the restrictions or elimination of content, as Twitter often does, but they are not obliged to do so. Restrictions and cancellations can also be the consequence of specific requests made by the governments of less open states due to freedom of expression. These procedures can lead to the coexistence of multiple similar platforms for the same social network. For example, Facebook is not a unique entity, but we can say that there are a multitude of Facebooks depending on the content that is made available to each user. The set of restrictive conditions applied defines the resources we can access and those we can't. It defines all the activities that can be carried out on the platform, and last but not least, it can also condition our judgments about a given issue with possible political and social consequences. What platforms are and what they should be. As users, it is important to understand the ways in which content moderation is carried out on platforms, who performs this task and for what purposes. Hence, 1. Content moderation should be much more transparent while remaining discreet. 2. We should be given the opportunity to freely choose what we see. 3. We should be able to use the same profile to access multiple platforms. 4. Users who do not respect the rules should be excluded from the platform. 5. Platforms should adapt to our interests and needs, not condition them. However, our opinion on the subject of moderation must change. Moderation of content is not an occasional event, but is a constant, essential, and characteristic element of each platform. Moderation is the essence of a platform. It is part of the service it offers us. Similarly, those who manage the platforms can no longer deny the responsibility of being the custodians of data relating to such a large, diversified, and contested public community, an environment created by the social media themselves. Therefore, since the platforms have a duty to their users, they too must declare and share the means and rules they use to ensure network safety. All this being said, we can declare that when we finally manage to find our space within the network, we have learned to experience it and to use the right tools to express ourselves, to involve and to persuade. Quotes. A platform company is a broker profiting by bringing together sellers and buyers, producers and audiences, or those in charge of tasks, and those with the necessary skills to accomplish them. The platforms are built on content moderation, and they could not be defined as such without this contribution. Take-home message. Moderation is the essence of a platform. It is the service that the platform offers us and is subject to protection practices that prevent us from clearly understanding how it is substantiated. As users, we must accept that our contributions undergo a possible check, but social media should make the procedures applied to implement this verification more transparent.